Greetings, dreamers. I am Mariko Bennett, and I would like to welcome you to my podcast, Dreaming with Intention. This is a space where your dreams are nurtured, intentions are set, and purposeful action turns visions into reality. Every episode, we will dive into personal development, spiritual growth, and practical advice to help you to manifest the life that you have always envisioned for yourself. So, grab your notebook, settle in, and let's blueprint your dreams together. Welcome to Dreaming with Intention. Now let's get started. So I am so excited because today I am joined by the fabulous, amazing India Martin. And she is going to be talking to us about embracing your ACT3, reinventing, resting, and rising in midlife. So with that, without further ado, let's give it up for Miss India Martin. Welcome to the show. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited.
I am just honored and grateful, beyond honored and grateful.
The feeling is mutual.
So thank you for being with us. So we're going to jump into it. And it's like I already put my note cards down. They were looking like, seriously, because this is a conversation, everybody.
It's a vibe.
It is a vibe. It's a vibe. So, before I actually jump right into our conversation, I am going to share what I always do is either a book or an article or a resource, about navigating life's transitions, leadership evolution, or how to dream with intention. And so today I am going to share a poem by Maya Angelou, and it is on aging. And it's talking about aging with dignity, aging with independence and self-sufficiency. It's talking about emotional strength and inner vitality. And so with that, that's what I'm going to leave you with today. I encourage everybody to read that poem, study that poem, and live that poem. So thank you. All right. So now we're going to transition right into you, India. And we're going to talk about, number one, the incredible career that you have built.
Thank you.
The lives that you have changed through your leadership development and coaching. And working with some of the most prominent leaders that we all know. I know you don't tell us a bunch of names, but that's right. We can't say names. But you have shaped and changed lives through your leadership development and coaching. And now you have created ACT3. And I can't wait to hear all about ACT3. And so now in this space is for women in midlife and beyond. And so I'm looking forward to talking about that. But before we get into that, what inspired you to start this movement of ACT3?
So I'm a woman of a certain age. And actually it started in my coaching practice where I was coaching a lot of women who were, I would say late 40s, early 50s, all the way through their 60s. And the themes were the same. The themes that continued to emerge were around caretaking up and down. Like, I'm taking care of parents, taking care of kids, or taking care of friends, taking care of elders, whatever it was the caretaking theme. It was identity. It was starting to feel invisible and not being seen in the same way that they were when they were 30, 40, whatever that might look like. It was work and life transitions. Like, what does this next phase look like for me? I probably have one job left, or I'm in my last job. What's next? How am I going to navigate this? I don't know what that looks like. It's menopause and beyond, because there are studies that show that women can be in their menopause in their 70s. Right? It can go for a long yes. I was talking to a doctor who said she has somebody who's 73 still experiencing hot flashes.
Jesus.
I said, listen,
no,
this is not where I'm trying to go. But there's the health things, but there's also beyond menopause. There are the kind of silent killers that start to emerge as you get older. And so it was really about women's health and wellness. How do you address those things? And all of these things kept coming up. The changing nature of relationships. Like, I'm now 55, I've been with this person for 20 years, does it still serve me? Or I'm consciously single. What does that look like for me? I now have adult children. I'm going from being a mom of kids to a mom of adult children. Or, I'm now the parent to my parents. Right? It's all of those, the changing nature of relationships as you start to get older. And so we're having these conversations, and I'm thinking, all these women are having the same issues independently. And I was like, we need to build community around all of it. There's a lot of talk at the moment about menopause and perimenopause and all those things. But actually, I think we need a 360 view of all the things that impact women as they hit a certain stage of life, because it can be daunting, and it can be daunting alone.
I love that. And so many, you hit on so many key points that immediately impact me right now. As I mentioned earlier when we were chatting, my 82-year-old in-laws live with us now, both of them, mom and dad. And, and then I have an 18-year-old who's headed off to college. So I'll have all adult children. So I too am in that transition. And so how would Act 3 help this woman of transition? Because as you just laid all that out for me, I was like,
Wait.
She's talking about me.
I'm talking about you. And many of us, and here's the thing about this age and these kind of transitions, you're going to hit them eventually. Every woman is going to hit them. Right? And that's the thing, is it's not optional. These are not things that are options. It is a stage in life that we get to where these things start to happen naturally. And so Act 3 for me was about building community around those things. We've been very intentional about the structure. So I'm not doing, like for me, okay, first off, my attention span ain't good enough. So I cannot sit in a room and listen to people all day.
Oh my God, no. I cannot.
This is 15-minute provocations around something. So the provocation could be a small panel. It could be a keynote. It could be some video intervention. But then we go off into breakouts about the things that people are most interested in around that thing. So for example, if we were doing caretaking, we would break out into the people who were focused on parents, the people who were focused on children, the people who were focused on whatever else it might be, but giving people communities around the specific things and having facilitated conversations. Because I find that when I go to these things with women of my age, the wisdom's in the room. It's not necessarily always just on the stage.
Come on now.
And so it's like, how do we create community and have conversations and create the space for women to share their stories? Because that's actually where the value is. Like the woman over there can tell you, this caretaking journey has been crazy for me with my mother, but I found a facility that does this, and this. And guess what? I live 15 minutes from you. And now you're kind of getting resources that are valuable and not just listening to people on the stage. And I'm not minimizing that.
That's right.
Because I don't minimize experts at all. But the value is in like talking to people who've done it. It's in the experience people have that they share with you, so that you don't have to necessarily repeat the same things.
I absolutely know. I love that because it sounds very familiar to when I talk about blueprinting and our blueprinting experience. It's like, what's the area, right, that you need support in? So I love how intentional you are about that. So if your area is caretaking or how to manage adult children, because that too, I'm sure that's a whole thing. I'm just getting into it. So I'm about to have to learn today. I'm about to go. So, but with that being said, and then understanding that and then building community around it so you actually have tools to be able to support you, right? And people.
Because the thing is that people will give you strategies and be like, oh, do this and do that. But actually, I want to hear about the implementation. I want to hear from somebody who's done it in real time or who's experiencing it in real time. And even if they haven't figured it out, I want to know that I'm not on my own in this.
That's right.
And that there are other people who are going through the exact same thing. We have a really interesting session that we're doing around what it's actually going to take to make the retirement transition for a lot of folks. And, for a lot of women, people feel like they should know and they don't necessarily. But it's a hard place to be vulnerable enough to say, I didn't plan for it. I didn't think about it this way. Or my husband did that. I'm not with him anymore. Now I have to figure it out for myself. Or whatever it might look like. This is also about creating spaces where people can be vulnerable enough to talk about what they don't know so that we can help people figure it out. And we do that very intentionally.
Ooh, I love everything about what you just said and how important that is. And so it sounds like folks are coming in the room very authentic too. It sounds like it's a safe space that you are creating to be able to be authentic and share.
It is. And it's all walks of life. Like this isn't about corporate women or whatever. This is about women. Right? It is multicultural. We have 7 global ambassadors. So we have Ghana, South Africa, Dubai in the Middle East, Australia, India, the UK, and here. And so we have the kind of global ambassador program, and then we also have obviously locals. So it's going to be in DC on June 4th to 6th at the Washington Hilton. Really excited because it's gaining such momentum, and it hasn't been hard because it's, again, all the things that we're all walking through right now.
I love that. And so registration's open now.
It is open.
Okay. And it's a full day workshop experience?
No, it's a full 3 day.
Well,
it is a Wednesday evening, full day Thursday, and most of the day Friday.
Oh, fantastic. So it's really an opportunity to connect and to really gain and build relationships with the folks in 3 days. I love that.
It is. It's real community. It is, how do you kind of create a community that goes beyond Act 3 at the Washington Hilton? How do I create the space where people feel like I found my people and I can carry this on beyond this room?
That's right. And folks can come from all over the world, right? You have a room block and all this. I heard it was at the Hilton, so therefore they have hotel rooms for folks to fly in. I love it. Okay, and so we're going to drop that date a couple of times in this conversation because I really want women to be able to have what they need in terms of transition. And it's interesting because as much as I goal, set, an action plan, envision, some of this, of what we're talking about right now, this life part has just happened. So, my in-laws moving in with us about 2 years ago, it wasn't like I didn't have a big vision or a big plan. Absolutely. I knew that for me and mine, I wanted to show my children, not tell my children, that when I age, we always had the elders in the home. We didn't put them out.
My parents are, so my parents are with me too.
Oh, right. So that's not really an option, right? And so I needed to show, they need to see, right? Because you can tell your kids a lot, but they see what you do too. And so it just kind of happened. And then the children, I want to say they just kind of aged, but I know they did just age. I know it took 18 years, but I'm still grappling with the fact that Mackenzie's forever 12 in my mind, but she's really not. She's headed to college, so I have to deal with that. But it just happened. I will say I've been planning for what I want for me in that transition, which is I want to take, some knitting classes, and I want to be...
practitioner. You better.
Right.
You're a practitioner.
So I've been planning what I want for me, but I am not planning for how to manage adult children. So I absolutely love what you're saying to me because that wasn't something, I thought about in terms of, my plans but I will now though. I'm gonna have some goals, some action steps. I'm gonna take part in this 3-day conference and I'm gonna figure that out. And then to the other point is, and when you move your parents in, there's really no time limit on that. So I'm curious what other folks are going to tell me that have that experience in this room of women. So,
but what's really interesting is that there are those of us who do what we've done, and then there are others who are like, yeah, that's never going to happen. I couldn't have my parents live in my house, and that's no judgment. People have their own,
judge. I've met them.
Their own, but me too. But it's like my parent, I found this facility, or they're in a really wonderful place where they can go into as much care as they need over time, but right now they're in an apartment or whatever it might be. Right. It's kind of like elder care facilities. But my point is just that we still have a lot of living to do at this age.
Yes.
And this is one of the most difficult times for women in their lives. The first most difficult time is when they first come into their hormonal changes as teenagers. Okay. And then they're going on their hormonal changes as adult women, going on the other side of it. And those 2 times of hormones are really challenging. Ooh. And you're going through all this stuff around people having expectations of you taking care of them, around figuring out what your financial future is going to look like, around still knowing that you are absolutely valuable and that you can contribute, but people starting to behave as if you don't have as much to contribute because of your age. There are all these things that start to happen, but I feel great. But the first time somebody called me auntie, I was like, I'm not your auntie. I'm still cute and hot and young. Stop this. Stop this.
Who are you talking about? Auntie where?
Auntie who? Auntie who? Auntie where? And so, there are those kinds of things that we have. Seriously, I was like, young son, you're not going to call me that. Okay, I was like, no. But there's just so much around the transition, and it has to be intentional for us to be able to walk through this with grace. And so I think providing the things to support people is important.
I love that because I definitely found myself Googling very recently my age.
You Googled it?
I had, because changes and things were happening. And I'm like, let me Google blah, blah, blah. Let me Google, women of my age, and what should I expect in terms of,
Yeah.
transitions or symptoms. And the funniest thing is the age I am right now, they said is for, middle-aged women. So I'm 44. And they said 44 and 60. They said 44 and 60 were major shifts in women.
Well, honey, I'm 55 and fine.
I know that's right.
And I'm like, but it's weird because here's the thing. In my mind, I feel 25.
Right.
And I probably act like it.
I remember when they told me that when I was young. I remember the aunties said that then too.
On my mind, I feel like a baby. So
we all do. Yeah, we all remember it. We remember college. I mean, after that, we stopped. So, okay, now I got to jump into some questions that my team really wants to make sure that I ask, because I can just keep flowing with the conversation, but they actually have some areas that we actually have to talk through. So talk a little bit about reinvention and how that evolves over time with some of the leaders that you have coached over the years.
Okay, so I think that when I think about reinvention specifically, it really is about allowing things to emerge and allowing opportunities to emerge. And that, like, leadership isn't this thing that you become. Like, I moved into my leadership. It really is about a way of being. It's about how you show up in every place and space that you inhabit. I think that there is a leader in every seat. Mm-hmm. It's not something that, like the person who sits in that office, the person who has that role. I think there's a leader in every single seat. And so it is about a way of being. And when I think about reinvention, I think about a leader that I worked with for several years who, when we first started working together, was really specific about the thing that he wanted to do. He was like, I'm going to do this. I want you to help me get to that seat. That's the kind of work that I want to do. I want to do this thing. And over time, I continued to kind of remind him about not being so focused on that vision that he didn't allow other things to emerge, and would miss some of the opportunity because he was so focused on that thing. And so reinvention for me is about agility. It's about being agile. It's about allowing opportunities to emerge. And it's about remembering that, every place you walk and every space you inhabit, you're a leader.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you said leadership is in every seat. And that's one of the things that I try to articulate to my team. I'm like, you own that. That's yours. You own that part. You don't need me to make those decisions. You got it. As a matter of fact, teach me. I believe that we have a lot to learn from the folks that are around us, regardless of their position and this title that we were able to receive. So I love that. So now, how can women shift their mindset to embrace this phase of transition with excitement and possibility, right? Because I think, a lot comes at us with, all of the challenges that potentially we can face when we enter a certain, phase of life. But how do we bring excitement and joy into this transition?
I mean, I think exactly that. I think, we know enough to have a good time.
We know enough to have a good time.
But I say that, like, even when I think about Act 3, Act 3 is about all the transitions, but it is ultimately about joy. I mean, like, we are waking up in the morning. We are taking breath. We are, like, creating these communities of love around the things that are important to us. That is joyful in itself. Yeah. Right now, some of the things that we experience could be challenging, but what a joy it is to wake up in the morning and see your parents next door in your house, or what a joy it is to have adult children who've made it as far as they've made it and are going out into the world to make their mark. What a joy it is to age gracefully and to still be in this body after, some people aren't here anymore.
That's right.
So, like, there's so much joy, I think, in just the everyday things we do that we forget because of some of the challenges that we face. But girl, I just say, like I said, we know what to do to have a good time. We know enough. And I say now I'm at the age where, I'm financially stable enough I can do what I want.
That's right.
I know enough that I can make good choices. Now, my body might move a little more slowly, and there might be some little bumps and lumps I didn't expect. but I'm still happy and having a good time.
I love that. I love all of that. Now, Act 3 emphasizes both action and rest, right? So you talked about we might move a little slower and different things like that. I'm just saying. But why is balance so important in this stage of life? And how can women practically achieve it, right? So we talked about the fact that we got like, you know, we have our parents in our home, we might still be working. We might be managing teams, and then these adult kids are calling us for advice and all the things. So how do we balance all of that at this time?
It's so interesting because I'm one of those people, when they used to talk about work-life balance, I was like, that is such a farce.
Okay, what is that?
Real. And the balance thing, I think the thing that, for me, balance is about understanding that you can only do one thing at a time, and that you have to be focused on that thing. Like when I'm at work, I love my kids, but I can't do both at the same time. Like it's not physically possible for me to do both at the same time. So balance for me is about giving your all and being present in the space that you're in that moment. And then like when it's time to rest, I go and I give myself rest. So like when I get home, I don't do any work. I give myself to my home, to my rest when I'm in that space. I think the challenge comes when people try to do it all at once and think that that's we're not machines. It's not achievable. It's not sustainable. And so it really is about allowing yourself to be wherever you are in that moment and be present and not feel guilty about where you can't be and what you're not doing.
Absolutely. Enjoying the moment and being present in the moment. And that is so important. I'm just telling you, I feel like this conversation is for me. And so I pray and I know, because I am getting so much out of this conversation, that our listeners and our dreamers will also be blessed because of all of the gems that you are dropping. And we're going to continue that on because I have so many more questions. I'm excited. I'm going to ask all the questions, everybody, because I don't know about y'all, but Miss India is blessing my soul and giving me practical advice and tools, which is so important so I can go and live my daily life and manifest these dreams and goals and hopes and aspirations that I have for myself. And you're even giving me some things to consider that I had not considered. So thank you for that. Thank you. So now we've mentioned before that you've worked with, Fortune 100 executives and leadership teams all over the world. What lessons from corporate leadership can women apply to their personal growth and reinvention? So what are some of the tools and tricks that you taught these global leaders that our listeners can apply to their lives?
It's actually quite simple. And I think the first one is you can't be anybody other than who you are. And when you see these corporate spaces, there are these archetypes of like what success looks like. And people will try to shift who they are to meet those archetypes when they're actually not who you are. And it's that whole thing around when you're projecting something other than who you are, something doesn't sit right about that person. It's that kind of like, yeah, I like them and they're good, but there's something, and you can't put your finger on it. And it's usually because they're not operating authentically in who they are. And it's a tough thing to do when you're surrounded by people who aren't like you. And I'm talking across any number.
That's right.
It could be socioeconomic, it could be ethnicity, it could be gender, whatever it might be. It could be anything. But the natural human thing is to try to fit into whatever it might be. And actually, I think the things that make folks uniquely who they are their kind of North Stars, and they're kind of the thing that makes them special. And so I would say that the thing that I often say to women, particularly those who are in very male environments, is that you are not going to be a man. You can't be a man. But there's this feminine energy that you bring that you have to leverage and use, and be okay with that because that's who you are. And so I would say a lot of the work has been around that. A lot of the work has been around helping people through various transitions. Like I'm going into this next big job. I'm not sure how I'm going to turn up or what this looks like or what it means or, how I'm going to work with my peers, or I don't know what that looks like. And so a lot of the work is around helping people to transition, again, gracefully, because grace is one of my favorite words for a variety of reasons. But when you operate with integrity, when you kind of walk in your own shoes and it's okay with you being who you are, those transitions are a lot easier because when you're also trying to project something, again, like other than who you are, it's really difficult to kind of forge new paths and new spaces because it's too much to juggle. It's too much. It's tiring, and you're trying to do this, trying to be this, but you're not. You're trying to do that, but you're not. And the ultimate job you don't end up doing as well as you could because you're spending too much time.
I love that. And so it's so funny because I meet people and, we host, political events. I mean, we're in a bunch of different rooms with a lot of leaders and corporate muckety mucks. And, I really like to show up as Mariko. So Mariko is going to have a nice time. We're going to laugh. We know this. India said we know this. Like every time. I'm going to be who I am.
That's a blessing.
And I've had people ask me like, you're not going to, like, this is comfortable for me. And I always tell people if I'm not having a good time, right, if I'm not enjoying myself, then I don't think anyone else is either around me, and I like authentic humans. I just, I like, and I feed off of energy, and I love to give good energy. I like to receive good energy,
Well, that comes from a place of confidence, though, and sometimes for a lot of folks, when you've been in spaces where you've been so blessed in that you're able to walk through spaces and be who you are, and a part of that is because you have been, driving your own ship for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But when people are evaluated and compensated based on how they show up,
mm-hmm.
and it's different from the other thing, and like those things can knock your confidence.
Mm-hmm.
People start having imposter syndrome, and it's a lot harder for them to show their authentic and natural selves because that's often tied to your money.
That's fair.
In corporate spaces, right?
Right.
And so this is not about getting people to, when I say that I want them to be themselves, it's not about putting themselves at risk, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
That's not what I'm asking.
Yeah,
them
no,
to
please don't do that.
Whole, bring your whole self to work. No, don't.
I was going to ask you to touch on that. Please, God.
Leave it at home. But so it's really just about finding that sweet spot for yourself,
mm-hmm.
that where you can be yourself, but you don't have to share everything. So what I say to people is, authenticity isn't sharing everything. It's being authentic with the things you choose to share.
That's right. I love that. Say that one more time for the people in the back.
All right, let's see if I can do it again without, this is a tongue twister. Authenticity is about choosing what you want to share. I'm sorry, see, that's
being authentic with what you choose to share.
Being authentic with what you choose to share, not sharing everything. You don't have to share everything.
I love that. I love that. And so many people need to know that.
That's how you can be yourself.
I love that.
Choose to share, be real about, but you don't have to share it all.
You don't. You do not. But I do remember when I was in corporate America and how I had to show up there. But I will say, the knots in my stomach of trying to be something that I was not was also quite difficult for me.
For some.
It caused me some heart palpitations and some other things. And I just realized that, to your point, I've been on this, journey 9 years now. And I've never had another heart palpitation, and I have not looked back. That's my story, and that worked for me because, trying to fit myself into a box, it was uncomfortable for me. It didn't, and it wasn't even, I was trying to, show things. I wasn't even trying to share a bunch of stuff, right? But it was just, it didn't work for me in that space. Now I love corporate though, and I love my executives, and I love working for the big companies that we work for, but I'm able to be my authentic self and serve and do the work, and it makes all the difference in the world for me. 100%. So now we're going to go into some of our other questions here. I like strategies, and I like to be able to give people actionable information and advice so they can actually take it and apply it into their personal lives. Okay. So talk to me a little bit about some strategies that can help women navigate competing priorities without burnout. So I know you talked about being present in what you're working in, but I think burnout is real even when you're fully present with what you're working on. So what are kind of what's some of the advice you would give folks?
Boundaries.
Boundaries. That big word.
It's a big word.
Come on now.
But it's about boundaries.
Talk about
it. It's about deciding. I tell people, ask people, what's your red line? What is your red line? Know your red line. Know the line that you're not prepared to cross. And don't cross it. Like, that is a choice, right? And I do understand, like, again, when we're in jobs that require a lot of us, and where people have all these expectations of what we'll do, it can be really hard to draw that line. But if you don't, our good Lord has a way of drawing it for you, and you might be on your back somewhere, lay it out. So you make a choice about whose line, what the boundary line is, and you make a choice about when or not you're going to cross it. And I tell people, don't cross your red line. And so, I think when you think about burnout specifically, it is about really being clear when you're not in times of stress, what your boundaries are. Because if you try to do it while you're in it, it's too hard to kind of navigate it. So it requires a level of planning. You need to be thoughtful in advance, thus the blueprint, around exactly what you want to do and how you're going to do it. If you can do that and stick to it and have a plan, then it makes it a lot easier when things come flying at you.
You just said a word, and it's hilarious because I didn't realize that I had such strong boundaries, but I do. And a friend of mine, she mentioned that to me recently. We were talking about something, and she was like, "Oh, but you don't really play with your boundaries." And I'm like, "What you mean?" And I had to sit and think about that for a moment, and I'm like, "You do have real boundaries," and I articulate my boundaries pretty clearly. I'm a straight shooter though, and a lot of people,
Find it harder.
Yeah, find it more difficult. And so I'm pretty vocal about what I find okay and not okay. So I love that you said that. But you know what you also said that really stuck with me is not doing it at a time where emotions are high or you're upset about something, but when you're calm and you're thoughtful and you actually write down what your non-negotiables are. I thought that was so powerful.
100%. And here's the other thing is that everybody's not forward about it. You're very clear about your boundaries. I'm very clear about mine. There are people who are quieter about their boundaries. Like my sister, one of my sisters has, she don't play, but she don't say anything. She's just not gonna do it. It's a really interesting thing. But she's not out here. I'm out here running. Yeah, what I'm not gonna do is, that's me, right? And her, you just hey, Kara. She's gone. I'm like, where'd she go? She's we have these things at my house. I have this group at my house. We call it prayer-ish because we're a prayer circle-ish because we're doing other things in addition to our prayer. So we call it prayer-ish. And seriously, at 5 o'clock, we start usually around 2 o'clock. On a Saturday or whatever day we're going to do it. Say 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, those of us who don't have boundaries will be there until midnight. 5:30, my sister will slide out the door. You won't even know. We're like, where's Kara? What? She will be sitting in the circle and you won't notice she's gone. Because she has a boundary, but she goes home and she makes sure that her dinner is cooked for her family. And she don't play with that. But you don't know, you just, she's all gone. And you're like, what on earth is happening here? But my point is that your boundaries don't have to be, what they are.
Right.
You hold to them.
Ooh.
And when you walking in them, people aren't questioning you. Because they know. You can kind of tell. When you're running against somebody's boundary, because they will start to behave in ways that you're pushing up against something. And when you do that enough, when you hold firm to your boundaries enough, people stop pushing them. Because they know your line.
Wow. I'd love today's episode. This was so powerful. Okay, but before we go, there's a couple of things that I just want to make sure that we tell our listeners, and I would love for you to talk again about the conference that's coming up. So please tell us again the date, the time, the location. Tell our listeners what they can expect, what they're going to be greeted with, and what they'll walk away with.
Yes. Okay. This is my fun part. So Act 3 is a convening, as opposed to a conference, a convening, because we're convening community together for women midlife and beyond. So it's multi-generational, but beyond. So most of our attendees are late 40s and above, mid to late 40s and above, I would say. They will come in wondering what's going to happen, and they will leave with community. We have a wonderful workbook that follows you through the convening, so you can go through all the things. We have a wonderful bookstore, so we're hoping the blueprint will be in our bookstore.
Yay!
The bookstore has titles that are related to all the things we're talking about. So we have curated, and I think we have about 150 titles so far of books, because it is a true kind of library bookstore people can go into and find all the things related to the stuff that we're talking about. We have a wonderful relaxation lounge. Obviously, we have the vendors because we like to get some things, some fragrances, some body stuff, some clothes, some whatever you can imagine.
We like all the things,
all kind of women's things that women like, but also health related items because that's an important part of this journey. It is just my whole thing was I want people to walk into this space and feel delighted, like oh, this fed my soul, it gave me everything I needed. And here's the other thing I think is really, really important is that we're in a real moment, as in this country and beyond. The world is in a moment, and one of the challenges that we have is that, well, actually the challenge is not, this isn't a challenge, the feminine energy needs to rise to manage away some of the things that are happening. But that can't happen in isolation, which is why ACT3 is multicultural, because we have to learn how to be together. We have to learn about the things that bind us. I am not minimizing any of our experiences by any stretch, because Lord knows I lived them. But there's this thing around women convening to take our power back and to shift the energy that's around us, which is toxic, frankly. The toxic masculinity that is all over the place. So that's what ACT3 is about.
Yay, I'm excited. And the date again?
June 4th through 6th, 2025 at the Washington Hilton in Washington, D.C.
I love that. Okay, and so now it's time to say goodbye. But before we do, what would you leave our listeners? What's the advice that you really want them to take away from this conversation that we've had today, or something that you just want to impart in our dreamers and our listeners? What would you leave them with?
That each person is so uniquely special. And that, each of you, dear dreamers, are enough just as you are. Like, we all have things we want to shift or things we want to change, but you're enough. And that the world will tell you through all the things that happen that you're not. But that you're here for a reason, and just walk in your purpose.
Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for blessing us with your presence today, India. It moved me, and I just pray and I know that it moved our listeners. Yeah.
So that you had me.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the blueprint for the bookstore. Y'all look for the blueprint.
Yes.
Bookstore at ACT3.
It's going to be there. I'm excited. Yes. Thank you. All right. So one of my favorite segments is Ask Mariko. I encourage listeners to send me questions, send me concerns, ask me how. And if I don't know the answer, I'm going to ask one of my subject matter expert friends to give me insights that can be helpful for you. Okay? So this question came in from one of our dreamers and listeners. It says, I want to shift careers, but I'm worried about starting over. How do I confidently take that leap? Well, some of you all know that I had a career in corporate America before I took the leap of faith and became an entrepreneur. So I first had a dream. I saw what I wanted. I understood my why. I wanted to leave corporate America, and then I started on a path of entrepreneurship. And so was I worried? Absolutely. I talk about it a lot in my book, The Blueprint to Manifest Your Dreams. Did I have some fear? Absolutely. The fear was I am going to leave my corporate job where I have a baked in 401k. I've got a company credit card, and I'm making over six figures, well over six figures. And I got a bonus every year because I always excelled at my work. And I wanted to make sure I was going to get that bonus. And I had 3 kids, a mortgage, and like all the bills that comes with that, right? So, of course, I had some fear and I won't even call it fear. It was just, what am I going to do? What if this doesn't work? I had questions. And so I wanted to be crystal clear about what I needed to do and wanted to do, and my why of why I was walking away, and why I wanted to invest in me and believe in myself. The other piece on the other side of that journey is, and what I told myself and what I want you to tell yourself is, It's okay to try. The only failure is literally not trying. It's not taking the one step forward to try. So if you fail in your mind, you actually don't know if you're going to succeed or fail when trying. So let me give you a few bullet points, because I hope you have your piece of paper, your pad, your note section, however you take notes. Here's your one. Clarity reduces hesitation. Research your new field, network with people in it, and map out your transition plan. Don't just roll out like I'm out. No, I told you, research the new field, network with people in it, and map out the transition plan. Test before you leap. Always had a side hustle. So I was in corporate America. I always had something that felt like a hobby, something that I love to do, but I could make money at it if the time came. And so I always tested out projects. I had side projects, volunteer work, freelance gigs, something that can help you to transition gradually. Fear is a part of the process. Acknowledge it, but don't let it dictate your decisions. Confidence comes from action. Invest in guidance, a structured plan, the blueprint to manifest your dreams, our workbook, mentorship, or, I said it again, a program like the Blueprinting Experience. This can help you make the leap strategically. Like a surgeon, just saying. No meat cleavers here, okay? Don't just go hack at it, but act like a surgeon. Be meticulous. All right? Thank you for that question. I hope that our dreamers and listeners got something from that response.